Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with spiritual teacher, author, and mentor Elisha Gabriell. She has spent a lifetime in the field of evolving consciousness. Her resume includes 18 years of teaching yoga through universities, holistic and spiritual centers, and her own home living room. She founded Laughing Goddess International. This serves as an online site offering courses, books, and workshops. From her base in Colorado Springs, we get into all of this and more. She's got a great energy. Enjoy.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yay!
Nice to meet you.
You as well.
Are
I
you-
wish I could interview you.
What's that?
I wish I could interview you. You seem so interesting.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Maybe we can do a follow-up after this.
Yeah, that would be fun.
It's wonderful to meet you. I love your story. Thank you for taking a minute out today.
Oh, I'm so happy to. I'm
So,
excited to reach your guests as well, or your audience.
yeah, I am too. So where are you located?
I am in Colorado Springs in the beautiful mountains.
Wow, I got married in 2019 in July, kind of as a precursor before the pandemic happened. And we were going to go to New Orleans for our honeymoon, but a hurricane was brewing. So we called our honeymoon the Bob Ross Happy Accident. We rerouted and went to Manitou Springs.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
It was
And how
It was-
cute.
so much fun. We love the whole area. We've been back. We actually
Yes.
went back last year, so it's wonderful up there.
It sure is. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
love Manitou as well. I'm there mostly in the summer. I don't tend to visit in the winter because it's a walking place,
Yeah.
but boy, I love to be there. And I just was there last week.
Wow. Yeah, we loved it there. We went back a year later, maybe it was 2 years later, with my stepdaughter, and we climbed that mountain there in Manitou. So that was fun.
Now, do you mean the incline?
Yeah, the incline. That's what I meant to say. Yeah.
My son just finished 500 inclines. He had to do 500 in 6 months or something like that. And
Wow.
boy, did he. Yeah, he was up to doing three a day. But he did it, and he got certified as part of the something like the 500 Incline Club.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's wonderful.
yeah,
Well,
super proud of him.
yeah, for sure. Well, I'm coming out of the middle of America in Kansas City, Missouri. So again, it's great to meet you, and I'd love to begin our journey here in the interview with asking, 4 years ago, this global pandemic was beginning, and we were wrapping our heads around it. And I'm curious, how did you make it through that time period, and how did it change you?
Well, I must be an exception to the pandemic being impacted, because my field is, for the past 30 years, has been Alzheimer's care. So I was working in people's private homes, and I was working in facilities, both. And my job continued as is. I did not go into fear, and I went actually on YouTube to my Facebook group to lift everybody out of fear. So every day I would be on Facebook saying something positive. And, what are we learning through this? Know that you are an infinite being, and you do not have to be controlled by anything outside of yourself. You are the one that is attracting your daily experience through your trust in life, trust in yourself, or by going into fear and then attracting from that frequency. So I stayed very high through the entire COVID experience. I did not go into fear. And I lived my normal life completely on every level. I worked every day. I went grocery shopping without any fear. And I lived a normal life. My job just went on normally. I hiked, and like I say, I must be an odd fish in some way, possibly. Or maybe there were many, many, many more like me that just were not vocal and that were not highlighted by the media.
I'm getting the idea that the media really grabbed onto the if it bleeds, it leads thing. And there was a lot of fear that was going on because I do run into a lot of people that genuinely felt as though this time period was beneficial. There were silver linings, didn't take away from the woe that was going on around the globe. But I think there was generally this feeling of good things were transpiring.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yes,
Yay.
for sure. So
Yeah.
on paper, you're a spiritual teacher, author, and mentor. But if I was to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day, and one of the curious kids looked up and said, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How would you answer that child?
I would say I uplift people to their best possible life through many different ways. Through one, just being myself. Through two, through having a complete background in 40-year background in holistic living and in, what's the word, choosing my frequency from which to live. And I teach them as well in very subtle ways, depending on their receptivity. So really, the bottom line is helping people to live their best life.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
Well, I was very in love with every animal that ever existed at that time. I was in love with horses, and I wanted to be a horse owner and a horse breeder. I wanted to breed race horses someday. I was passionate about dogs, and I trained our family dog to win the local dog show 3 years in a row through obedience and stuff like that. And so I wanted to raise dogs. I wanted to raise collies specifically. And I just wanted to be in the world of animals and nature.
So talk to me a little bit about your upbringing, where you were born and raised, and how you got so in touch with your consciousness and spirituality to help people get to a better place in their life.
Well, I was raised in Sandwich, Illinois. Yes, Sandwich, Illinois, which is northern Illinois. And people think I'm kidding when I say that, but no, it was named after the Earl of Sandwich from England. And so that's where it got the name Sandwich. And it was a little farming town of 3,000 people. So I spent a lot of time in nature. Nature was my place of renewal. As I got older and older, my father became a violent alcoholic, and he would take it out on my sisters and I with the shaving belt that he used to shave. And we got beat often for doing something that he had done during the night when he'd been dead drunk and had knocked something over, and would wake up the next morning and my mom would be saying, "How did this happen?" And he'd say, "Well, it had to be one of them. It wasn't me. I know that." But he didn't remember doing it. So we would get beat until one of us admitted to doing it. So many, many times one of us would take the fall to protect all of us from continuing to get beat harder and harder until one of us admitted it. So, it was a part of my life was very free. I was always running. We did have a horse, and I was always riding my horse, and my sister was on her horse in the countrysides and just feeling a part of nature and a part of our horses. And the other part was a little bit for my father to come, a little bit afraid for my father to come home from work. And I constantly had tension in my home because my father did not have very loving and rational thinking. And so I grew up having fear of expressing my own opinion because my father was always right. I could not have my own opinion. And my mother was very passive and had been raised in an era where the wife supports the husband. And, it was a wait till your father gets home type of environment. And so my home life was not great, but I did have the outlets of school. I enjoyed school as being an escape, and I enjoyed nature as being an escape. And very early started to awaken spiritually. Because I did have a deep affinity and connection with nature, I felt inside my body that connection, that nurturing, that the wisdom of the land. And as I got older and older into my teens, I started reading books about Native Americans and how they lived with their horses and how they lived close to nature. And I began to model those ways of living inside of my own life. And I started awakening spiritually. Oh, I know, I think I was 17 years old, I read my first book on Edgar Cayce, who was called The Sleeping Prophet, and many people know of his teachings. And I read my first book from him, and it answered so many questions for me that I was just stunned. I remember lying on the couch on my stomach and reading that and just going, oh God, oh my God, oh my God, another realization, another answer as to how the universe was basically set up, how energy worked, how we carried past life, both blocks and challenges and strengths and gifts into this life. And I began to recognize and see flashes from those past lives. And I began to recognize that longing to be a part of the change of uplifting the living earth and uplifting humanity, of touching hearts around the world. And that began when I was 17. When I was 19, I went away to college and immediately joined a local yoga class in the park. I saw a sign on campus that said free yoga class in the 4th Avenue Park. And I knew in my gut and my heart that I was supposed to be there. So I began attending classes, and within probably 3 months, I was teaching daily classes, and it was a yoga training organization. So I began teaching when I was 19, and then every other university that I went to, I shifted states. I went from New York to Tucson, Arizona, and was teaching classes there. Then I came back to California and started teaching through University of Fullerton, State University in Fullerton, teaching weekly classes there. I taught through unity type churches, New Thought type churches, taught yoga classes, and many through my own home living room. And that was kind of the beginning of my spiritual commitment and commitment really to further spiritual awakening. And that continued and still continues to this very day.
Yeah. So who's been kind of a hero or an inspiration for you in your life?
I honestly have to say that I haven't had one person. I've read lots and lots of books, and each one of those authors was an inspiration and taught me something new about life and new about myself. I have not really had one person. Maybe in the 70s, I would say Oprah. I watched Oprah's show every afternoon, and she was a huge inspiration. I wanted to be like her. I wanted to be able to help people in a larger way. I wanted to be an inspiration for people. I was very inspired by her angel network. And to this day, all of my courses and workshops, I donate 10% of any profits to Heifer International, which is an organization that helps people in tribal communities around the world, and literally even in the United States, from Appalachia. And it helps people get going so that they can create their own success. And that really is my driving force of all my courses, workshops, and books, is to show people the experience of their own power to create their own world. And that's what I care most about, is helping people to realize their own inner brilliance and their own possibilities, their own probabilities.
So what was one of the seminal books growing up that you read that made a profound impact on you?
Well, as I said, Edgar Cayce was probably the first one, and the one that I consider Edgar Cayce my first teacher, and that was when I was 17. And since then, there hasn't been one that stood out that I could go back to over and over and over, because I'm continually growing to a new level of understanding. So I attract then a different teacher through a different book or a different YouTube video that speaks to where I am in this moment. And then I grow beyond this moment to another unveiling or another opening of the petals of the flower of the full awakening of who I am as a living divine spirit being that is continually growing. So I continually attract another teacher, another aha from within my own self. And so that's really the answer to that.
So let me ask you this. Is there anybody on the planet that's alive right now that you find fascinating, that you would love to talk to or be around or learn from?
Well, you're one of them. I'm very inspired by your jazz background and from all the people that you've talked to. I think you're fascinating. At this moment, I would choose you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. There are lots of interesting and fascinating people in this world, but no one that I would pick as number one, other than real people living real lives and learning real lessons about life. And that's what I most care about sharing with my listeners, is real things that can lift them up to their own, the awakening of their own potential. That's what I care about.
So let me ask you this. Of all of the people that you've helped, all the clients that you've had, what's one client success story that stands out?
Well, probably my friend Kathy, who was one of my best buddies here in the Springs. And then she moved to Austin, Texas. So we lost a little bit of our going out to lunch and talking kind of stuff. But I constantly helped her and her daughters with healing. They had migraines. And for a long time, now I haven't had anybody ask me to help them with migraines lately, but for about a year, I was just kind of running into people that had problems with high migraines. I actually did a migraine talk at Whole Foods many years ago. And so my friend Kathy, she and her daughters, three twin daughters, and for some reason they were genetically predisposed to migraines, and they were on heavy drugs for pain. And I was able to act as a healer and work on each one of them and stop their migraines. And while they were having a migraine, I could break their migraines. And I was able to do that with many, many people during this year or so period, of people who were in the midst of a migraine, and I could break their migraine. I dated a guy named Steve who had a condition called cluster headaches, cluster migraines, and they are supposed to be 10 times, 100 times worse, the pain, than a regular migraine. And many, when I did research on cluster headaches, I found that many people would commit suicide rather than face having to go through another round of cluster headaches. And I was dating Steve, who happened to have cluster headaches. And so I did healing on him one night after work and was I just stood behind him with my shoulder, behind his shoulders, excuse me, with my hands on his shoulders and my hands around his head and open to healing energy. And I heard my spirit team tell me he needs to do this 6 times in a row when he comes home from work, do this 6 nights in a row. And I did it about 15 minutes just of allowing healing energy and rebalancing parts of his brain that had a programming of reacting to any kind of stress or imbalance with a round of headaches. And I reprogrammed that. My spirit team reprogrammed that. The light of source itself reprogrammed that. And after the 6th day in a row, he never had another cluster headache. And I saw him 2 years later, with a different girlfriend. And he said that 2 years later, he'd never had another cluster headache, and he'd been having them for 3 to 5 years. So that was pretty impressive to me that it actually worked. And then my friend Kathy, with her 3 daughters, the same thing. I also recommended to them to avoid caffeine and a few other irritants that would trigger a migraine within them, but I was able to break their migraine when it was just getting revved up and starting into a migraine. So I think those are probably my 3. And then one of my sons has had trouble with drugs, as many people do today. And I have talked with many of his friends because I have given them rides places when they didn't have a car. And my son would ask me, "Can you take so-and-so to his clinic to pick up his Suboxone," which is a drug which decreases the frequency or the intensity of longing or urges for drugs. And I said, "Sure, yeah, and I'd take my son and his friend to wherever he needed to go. And or take him, can you take him to his job? His car just is not starting today." I'd say, "Sure." And so I'd have a friend or 2 of his in the car, and I would talk to them and find out 6 months later that because of the things I said to them, to that particular person at that time, that they had gone into a rehab clinic and now had completely changed their life, which meant a whole lot to me. And I was really surprised that the simple things that I said had motivated, a street drug addict to go into a rehab and to want to change his life.
So you've talked about giving good advice to clients. What's the best advice that you've ever gotten?
Good question. My goodness. Well, probably from the many, many spiritual teachers that I have watched their YouTube videos over the last bunch of years, is that the best advice is that everything is inside of us, that everything is inside of me. And all I have to do is believe that I can tap into that. And once I worked on myself, and I did so intensely because of not being valued or seen as unique or having any kind of worth in my family. That's what I carried into every aspect of my normal life. And I'm talking about the guys I chose to date, the food that I ate, my self-care, did I devote myself to caring for myself through exercise? Did I have that sense of worth that I could attract a higher paying income job? Everything in my life for years was created by me through the filter, that veil over my eyes, that veil over my heart, that veil over my self-knowing that said, "You don't deserve this. You deserve the lowest paying job." I can't think there's a term for that, but the lowest paying job. You can do that. Yeah, sure, you can get that job. And I did. many, many times. And it took me years of my own worth being reflected back to me so that I could then begin to believe that I was worthy of a higher paying job, that I really was worthy of becoming the spiritual teacher and guide and mentor that I dreamed of becoming. But for years, when I attempted to teach a workshop or to teach a class at the local metaphysical shop, I'd have 2 people show up or 3 people show up, or nobody that signed up for an online workshop. And I never could understand why. I know that what I'm teaching is valid. Why do I have so few people show up? Why can't I create success in my heart's deepest dream, which is to become a teacher that can touch hearts and minds around the world with my teachings of love and self-value, self-love and self-value, and the deeper principles of the law of attraction. And finally, because I had been working on myself so intensely, I started having little small breakthroughs, little ahas. Oh, I see. I am worthy. I see. I feel it now. I can feel in every cell of my body that I am a reflection, a sparkle of the divine light of Source Creator. And now I know that, and I started awakening more and more to that truth. And when I finally got it, it affected my self-knowing, my self-value, and my self-esteem. And I finally broke through. I finally manifested a higher paying job. I finally manifested better health. I finally manifested a higher quality of men that were attracted to me at that time. And I still don't want to be with anyone right now. But should I would open to that and set an intention for that. And I know that I could create that because now I trust in my own ability to create my own life. And any part of the world that is having violence, I just simply send white light to it. I send love to that part of the world, the people in that world, and then I let it go. I don't take it on as a personal burden. And I know that many people do take that on as a personal burden. And how can I be happy when people are suffering in this world is what many people say, and what I used to say when I was younger too. And now I've realized that because we are infinite creative beings, we can create our own personal worlds, and we can impact gently and subtly other parts of the world by just simply sending light. And because we are all connected, the people that we're sending that light and that love to cannot help but feel it on some level, whether that level becomes profound or whether that level is so subtle, it is still impacting whoever we send light and love to. So when I broke through and I realized that, gosh, I actually do have value, surprise, I do have self-worth. Well, I knew I did, I just didn't experience it until I was able to come home to myself. And that changed my entire world. I then invested in a mentor that could help me create a successful course, and someone who had helped many women, spiritual women, create successful 5-figure courses. I finally had the self-confidence in myself, the self-value and the trust in myself that I knew that I could do that. I knew that I could successfully complete her course. And that is what I want to turn around and give to other women who are stuck, who know that they have what I call their impossible dream, where they've taken steps over and over and put energy out and money out over and over and over with no success, but they don't know why. So I've created my course, Your Hero's Journey, a 90-day, a 90-day odyssey to the fulfillment of your impossible dream. And that's my passion right now, because I was finally able to break through to my own self-worth and my own self-esteem, to believe truly that my impossible dream had value to give to others. And I want to give other women that same experience of self-worth, of believing that their impossible dream that may have hit wall after wall is possible, and to give them the tools, the techniques, the visualizations, the inner journeys that activate those parts of ourselves that lead to trust, self-trust, in trusting that the universe has our backs, in trusting that the universe has our fulfillment as its fulfillment. Because when we reach our fullest expression of who we are, and there's always more after that, we always have more to discover and more to explore within ourselves as what is possible. But we uplift the entire universe. We uplift that unseen web that flows through and connects all things. And that, to me, is my primary goal for being on this living planet.
Wow, I love that explanation. So let me ask you this. If anyone wants to hire you, get your book, reach out, any of the good business, where can they go?
My website would be the best place. My email is there as well. My website is www.laughinggoddess.international. laughinggoddess.international. And you can go there and get my a free inner journey that will help you to have the experience of creating your life from a 5D frequency. It's a beautiful, magical journey I call the Magical Cottage. And it takes you into a 5D frequency and then asks you to embody the frequency of your dream. And it also leads you to my the part of my website that is Your Hero's Journey. And there you get free 105 deeper dynamics of the law of attraction. That each one of these affirmations are parts of my own journey of awakening that I had to move through in order to awaken to the point that I am now. Each one of those 105 free law of attraction deeper affirmations are an activation. When you have done these activations, these affirmations, you can feel it in your body. You can feel the cells of your body shimmer with a new light, with a new life, recreating themselves, as our cells do. Our cells are always recreating themselves. And these 105 affirmations, which are free to everyone simply for putting in your email and becoming part of my mailing list. And then you also get my twice a month free newsletter. I call it my Saturday morning newsletter. And you get that as well, where I talk about a particular aspect of life from a higher frequency and how you can awaken that within yourself. So I love being able to have the self-awareness and awareness of life that I can share, and I can reach out and touch other people's hearts, and I can reach out and take their hands. I can reach out and take you, the listener's hands, and say, come with me and look in the mirror of your divine expression, the infinite, magnificent being that you are. And that's what my entire website is designed for, and all of my books and classes. I have 2 books called One is White Buffalo and the Rainbow Warrior, and that is my bit by bit journey through my own awakening at that point in my life, and about the spirit teachers that came to me. White Buffalo was the first one. Who were the others? Oh, Spirit of the Hawk. And I should have looked at my book first, but I can't think.
No, you're fine. Yeah, no, you're totally fine. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for opening up about your story. It's been so eloquent and well done. And I look forward to catching up with you down the line. I would be totally open to doing this again. Yeah, keep doing the good work and spreading the light.
I will. Thank you. And you as well. And you can definitely spread light through music.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.